Bonsoir. Bonsoir. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, everyone.
Your worship, all public
Madam City Clerk,
devices are available. You have the right to address City Council in the official language of your choice. Meetings are also simulcast in both languages on the City of Moncton's YouTube channel and can be found on our website at moncton.ca. If you've registered with the City Clerk's office prior to the agenda deadline, 7 days before the meeting, you will be given 5 minutes for your presentations. All other public presentations will be given 2 minutes. You will receive a reminder when 1 minute is remaining. No presenter shall speak disrespectful of council, staff, or a member of the general public. The use of offensive or profane language will not be tolerated. Any breach of this guideline may result in the presenter being asked to leave the council chambers at the discretion of the chair. Service d'interprétation simultanée est offert durant nos
Conseil. Simultaneous interpretation services are available during all the City Council meetings. You have the right to address council in the official language of your choice. Meetings are also simulcast in both languages on the City of Moncton's YouTube channel and can be found on our website at moncton.ca. If you've registered with the City Clerk's office prior to the agenda deadline, 7 days before the meeting, you will be given 5 minutes for your presentation. Other public presentations will be given 2 minutes. You will receive a reminder when 1 minute is remaining for your presentation. Please note, no presenters shall speak disrespectfully of council, staff, or a member of the general public. The use of offensive or profane language will not be tolerated. Any breach of this guideline will result in the presenter being asked to leave council chambers at the discretion of the chair. Thank you. Thank you, Madam City Clerk. We have an agenda before us.
Leblanc. Donc, any questions? No, pas de questions. So we have a show of hands, right?
There are none.
Motion carried. Merci.
Conseiller Richard, do you
Councillor Richard,
Richard, any conflicts of interest?
thank you, Councillor Richard.
we have the minutes of the meeting of April 22nd and May 5th available for approval.
So could I have a mover and a seconder for the minutes, please? Conseiller Kingston and Conseiller Steves. So we will, any questions on this? No? So we will do a manual vote.
Conseiller Bourgeois.
Oh, Conseiller Bourgeois.
Merci, Madame le maire. C'est juste un point très trivial.
Councillor Bourgeois, thank you, Your Worship. Just a quick note concerning the minutes of April 22nd. There's a list of conditions on page 23 for the 1010 project. And there's a number of letters. So L, M. It seems that something's missing at M, but I think it's a typo. So if something's missing, we need to correct it, or we should correct the typo if it's only a typo. Yes, is it okay if I advise the necessary staff to do that by email? I don't think anything's missing, but I'll double check just to make sure. And we can then approve the minutes at the next meeting, if you so wish. Yeah, that's fine. We can do that by email. Thank you, Councillor Bourgeois. Moving on to the vote. Manual vote, please.
For the minutes, c'est beau. Motion carried.
The first item for business today before council is encroachment agreement for 22 Church Street. And the motion before council is that Moncton City Council authorize the City of Moncton to enter into an encroachment agreement with 725360 New Brunswick, Inc., the registered owner of the property located at 22 Church Street and designated by Service New Brunswick parcel identifier number PID 7053965 to allow subject to allow subject to terms and conditions outlined in the encroachment agreement, the installation and encroachment of one 0.8 meter square non-illuminated projecting sign south at Second Pillar over the city-owned sidewalk and street light right-of-way, and that the deputy mayor and the clerk be authorized to execute the encroachment agreement and affix a corporate seal of the city of Moncton thereto.
Merci, Madame la greffière. Could I have a mover and a seconder, conseiller?
Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Any questions? No? So we will go to an electronic vote.
Okay, let's see if I can bring it up. Maybe we can do a manual vote this time.
So we will do manual vote then. All in favor, raise your hands. C'est beau. Motion carried.
Next are public presentations, exposés du public. And the first up this evening, le premier, c'est une présentation, une mise à jour de la
So the first presentation is an update from the Friends of the Moncton Hospital Foundation. Francis Leblanc, President and CEO, will give us an overview of their work. Good evening, France. Thank you again for welcoming me.
Answer in French. I'm also joined by my colleague Marc Beliveau, Director of Donor Major Gifts. So we're here really to just provide you an update of the scope of the Friends of the Moncton Hospital Foundation and maybe some reorientation that we will do in the near future. So the Friends of the Moncton Hospital, our mandate is to inspire communities to transform healthcare and change lives. So our vehicle is philanthropy, but really our mission is to help advance healthcare in the Moncton area and adjacent areas as well. This year, we are celebrating 60 years of philanthropy. So this is our first donation in 1965 by the Nurses Auxiliary. And interestingly, the Nurses Auxiliary have contributed over $2.5 million since their inception. And unfortunately, are sunsetting their organization this year, but their legacy is really far-reaching, and we'll be happy to celebrate them. But over these 6 years, we have been able to contribute over $100 million directly to the Moncton Hospital. How we do that is strategically around 5 pillars, and these align very closely with the expertise areas at the Moncton Hospital. So we have cancer care, women and children, brain health, mental health, and innovation. And innovation can be from research to AI to robotics, so really a large catchment areas of priorities. I wanted to just show you really high level a few examples of donor supported projects, including some that the City of Moncton had contributed to show you the scale of the work that we do. So we were really, really excited after many years of planning to officially open the Jean Elizabeth Saunders Irving unit at the Moncton Hospital for obstetrics and newborn. And that includes obviously obstetrics and delivery, postpartum, neonatal intensive care unit, as well as external clinics. What is often not known is that the Moncton Hospital is a catchment area not only for Southeast New Brunswick, but also Northern Nova Scotia, the entire province of New Brunswick, and PI for complex cases. So we are really the hub and a regional center for excellence around women and children. We were very excited to welcome the first baby, baby Olivia, who was the firstborn, and through the generosity of our donor, be able to gift their family a year of free diapers. The mom was so moved that she started crying. For a young family, that can be really impactful. We were also able to also bring together community partners who've made this possible for us, including Mr. Irving, who's spearheaded our campaign for the last 25 years, as well as third-party fundraisers. So these are patients who have been positively impacted at the Moncton Hospital who mobilized to help. And Tiny Dreams campaign is one of those examples. So Rachel and Dennis Como have come together to raise over $85,000 since the inception of the foundation. And we're able to buy NICView cameras that are on all the NICU beds that allow families, moms, dads, and even grandparents from across the world to see the baby in real time, high resolution. It helps with attachment, but also breastfeeding and milk production. So these are some of the innovations that we're able to bring to the Moncton Hospital. We also have a second priority as part of the extraordinary care campaign. So the coronary care unit will be opening in 2027, which will help better serve, obviously, vascular and coronary care patients. We're also bringing better diagnostic tools as well with the addition of 3D diagnostic imaging unit for mammography at the Moncton Hospital. This is one of a few examples that where physicians or specialists have worked very closely with the foundation to identify these opportunities to support them and also bringing them to life. Another example of these are deep brain stimulation. So deep brain stimulation was a partnership between Dr. Ella Liu, which is one of our neurosurgeons at the Moncton Hospital, and Canada renowned, who recognized the value of deep brain stimulation for Parkinson patient and other movement disorders, approached the foundation, and we worked together to make this possible, the first in Atlantic Canada. And I will say, for those with Parkinson, it is life-changing, going from full symptomology, no talking, barely walking, to full function is really life-changing. We're giving back these patients their life, and also supporting research that comes with it. Bannon House is the final that I want to cover. Through conversations with oncology, we recognize the need for more non-medical support for people who are diagnosed with cancer. The Bannon House, once renovated, will allow for providing at no cost support for patients, but also families, and that is expected to open later on this year. So our objective is obviously not to meet the standard of care, but also to help advance the standard of care. Our hope as the Moncton Hospital grows into the community, we'll also be able to support that growth, and excited to do so in partnership with municipalities. So healthcare, like many of our work, is a team sport, and we're very grateful for the support that we've had from the City of Moncton and others throughout the year. And if you have any questions, I'd love to entertain them. Wow, right on the dot.
Merci beaucoup, France. On va entendre les deux présentations.
Thank you so very much. I think we're going to hear both presentations and then we'll let people ask questions.
Season update for Le Théâtre Capitale Theatre, Inc., and it's Kim Rayworth is here to give us that update.
Bonsoir, Kim.
Bon après-midi tout le monde. Merci beaucoup de l'invitation.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your invite.
Bon, êtes-vous prêts? Wow! So ça, c'est juste un petit aperçu.
Are you ready? So this is just a brief overview of what we've done over the year.
Des beaux souvenirs. You saw some images.
There was a lot of highlights, a lot of exciting moments.
Winter musical that we'll be presenting in partnership with Truda Musica. I cannot tell you what it is right now, but watch for the show announcements and information around Remembrance Day. So quickly, you saw a flash up there on that clip that was prepared by Guy-Luc Thériault, who's the newest member of our team. Geneviève Malta est là aussi, notre directrice de communication et la directrice adjointe. You saw there's some feedback shared in our post-show survey comments. It's very important for us to get a sense of how the audience and visitors appreciate and experience at the Capitol. So we really dive into that feedback. We keep prices low as a not-for-profit. We really want to make sure everyone feels welcomed. C'est nos précieux bénévoles qui font partie de cette réception et cet accueil.
Thanks to the work of our precious volunteers.
personal dog, not Kevin Siliker, although he is very warm and welcoming as well. So it's really important for the community to feel it has access to our facility. We offer discounted and waived rents for certain community groups and not-for-profits. Our Theatre Academy mostly runs those access partnerships with dozens of organizations in the community. We're in the middle of our summer drama camps right now, and we offer year-round classes as well through the building that we manage at the corner of Church and Alma Streets. So we just announced our new season. This is the programming that you see under this colorful banner. This year we'll be presenting 47 performers. That's $400,000 in artist fees. C'est des artistes de grand renommée, des têtes d'affiche.
So greatly renowned artists, Acadian artists, Francophone artists.
And we're delighted that they accepted our invitation to perform at the Capitol, and we're working very hard to get a couple of shows added. So I quickly mentioned Kevin the mascot, but it's just one example of how we strive to achieve the first in our strategic goals, which is to be a leader in advancing inclusion and diversity. We have an arts access program where we invite members of local not-for-profits to reserve complimentary tickets through their memberships to be initiated to an experience at the Capitol. We're also Rainbow registered, and we offer a broad number of barrier-free measures where we achieve to be barrier-free. So we reserve seats in the front row for people with visual impairments. We have bariatric seats, hearing devices, service animals are welcome, of course. None of this would be possible without the City of Moncton's funding. For 32 years, you have provided the core operations funding necessary for us to make these arrangements with artists 12, 18, and 24 months in advance. We are also delighted to maintain what is arguably one of the most beautiful architectural buildings in the community. It has stood on Main Street for 102 years and operated almost continuously. And thanks to the funding you provide us, we're able to complete a major seat renovation campaign last year. We invested $1 million in the building. We changed all the seats. We gave them all away. People were happy to have a part of that history in their homes. We only lost 8 seats, so it didn't put us out of any major capacity there. And we're really happy with the patron response received to date. This summer, we're doing some far less nerve-wracking and disruptive projects, like changing 2 of the 11 sections of the roof and changing major components of our HVAC equipment. So thanks again to you all for your annual campaign capital contribution, which we match to other sources of public funding, our own capital improvement fee that we apply to every ticket. And before I let you go, I really want to thank Councillor Edgett for her great engagement and participation in the board. I'd like to thank your municipal appointments, Jolynn Bernard, who served as our treasurer for since 2015, Bridget Kenny, Tiana Smith, Julie Chasson, and Barb Quigley. And I'd also really like to thank the city staff that every time we call, I see Conrad, Hélène, many members of your team are very responsive to making sure that our operations needs are met, especially when it concerns Seymour Street, public safety, any concerns we have, they answer the phone, and they're very helpful. Wow.
Merci.
I have lots more to say, respecting your blinking red lights there.
Merci beaucoup, Kim. Est-ce qu'il y a...
Thank you very much, Kim. Are there any questions for our presenters? Councillor Edgett, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Kim.
One of the things I'd like you to maybe talk a little bit more on is the inclusive aspect of what we do at the Capitol Theatre. And I'd like you to talk about that for sure. I'm really glad you mentioned the fact that you are maintaining this very old heritage building in downtown Moncton. I think that's so important and a very important part of our Board of Governors to recognize that important responsibility that we have. And the fact that we're fixing the roof now is very, very important. So please talk about a little more about the inclusion, like the programming that we're talking about here. It's not every show that makes money. There's a reason for that. Maybe you could explain that. And I'd like you to talk a little bit about governance too. A strong organization can be really evaluated by its governance. And I'd like you to speak about that, please.
Well, just firstly on the inclusion measures or the accessibility points that we have into not only our programming, we're also mindful that it can be very difficult for community organizations to present an event at a state-of-the-art historic venue that has 782 seats. So it can be difficult for an organization to put on an event and hope to make money or even break even. So we have certain supports for that. We also receive donations from individuals that go to support our access program. So I mentioned it so quickly that there are hundreds and hundreds of members of the community that are able to attend programming at the Capitol, events, live performances for free. They access those tickets through their memberships. We have great relationships with many organizations. I could try to name them all, but there are dozens of them where they work hard with their members to create opportunities to enjoy live performing arts. It can really change someone's life to feel a part of a beautiful organization that is, yes, well run and well maintained, but it really is a welcoming space. When you are greeted at the front door by a volunteer, someone takes you to your seat, pays attention to your feedback following the event. I think that there's a lot that goes into making people feel welcome. So people being the patrons or community users, we work with the local schools. There are many times throughout the year where we offer discounted or waived rent when we can permit it, so that other groups can have access to our building. We want to be the community's gathering space in the downtown, where we have played that role for 102 years. So that is really, really critical to us, that everyone feels that they belong there. We are really mindful to hearing anyone's issues, like a barrier experiencing a live performance. There was a patron, a mother, that said to us, "It's great that you have these different programs, you have wheelchair seats, but my daughter is visually impaired, and if she cannot sit close to the stage, she can't have a full experience." So we said, well, that's a problem we can solve. We'll reserve seats in the front row, and on your honor, and no one abuses it, people reserve seats in the front row when they need that. So we're always looking to create access points for people like that. And again, we work with dozens of organizations when we're looking to meet their needs while having them be a part of our organization. Maintaining the building can have its challenges. When the building was built in 1922, it succumbed to a major fire in 1926. Well, when it was rebuilt, it was not rebuilt to be a performing arts center with 700 places. It was built for the projection of silent movies, and to adapt that space over the last 100 years has definitely brought challenges. And I think that in 1993, when people renovated the building, they did so with such care and with such attention. And it's joyful work. It can be challenging, but it's something that we take so seriously. And again, with the contribution that the city gives us, there are great public funds there where we continue to invest. And since the building was reopened in 93, we've invested about another $7 million. So last year's project was huge, and it was the biggest one in a fiscal. But to have invested a further $7 million in the last 32 years, I think is really something we should all be very proud of. And the building is in really great shape and requires the constant maintenance. In the summer that we're doing roofs, and no one's super fired up about spending $500,000 on that, but it is necessary and critical to protect our operations. So, and then just back to what you asked about governance, the Capitol is really well served by 14 members of the board. 6 are your appointees. The city of Dieppe and Riverview both appoint 2. One of each of those are councillors, and then the board self-appoints 4 other members. And they meet monthly. They oversee our budget, which is now $3.2 million. 10 years ago when I started, the budget was $1.2 million. So we have seen incredible growth in the last 10 years. It is as a result of a number of things. We are programming more, we are presenting annual winter musicals, and we've developed an incredible relationship with our membership. Last year, we had 2,000 households that were members, that had access, that had pre-sales, that enjoyed the benefits of buying early, maybe buying out $17.55 the minute it went on sale. So there are those opportunities there that have created growth for the organization, and that growth has been supported and diligently managed by the board of directors, which is a very dedicated group of people. And one of the most vibrant committees of the board that I'd like to really highlight is the Facilities Management Committee. We call it the House Committee, and they oversee that budget of capital investment that this year will be $500,000. We're waiting on a funding announcement, hopefully for an application we've submitted to the federal government, where we'll see another almost $1 million next year. So that House Committee, the Facilities Management Committee, is always looking at the sustainability of the equipment, facilities, and the protection of the building, really. So we're well served by that committee. We've got a great finance committee. Jean-Paul? There's 3 or 4 active committees of the board there that are really at the service of the organization and keep our feet to the fire.
Thank you very much.
Merci. Conseiller Kingston.
Thank you, Madame Adès. Kim, I have a small request. 2 more nights with 1755.
At least.
Can you find 2 more dates there?
We're
Talk to the
working on
band.
it. We do. But if
It
you
was-
look at our calendar, we're
Well,
very busy.
it was amazing how quickly it sold out for those of us all of us who followed notre gang dans les années 70, on a vécu avec 1750.
In the 70s, we really lived with 1755.
Response was crazy
Mhm.
on their farewell season, the farewell tour, I guess, if you will, on the 2 nights sold out in a matter of minutes. So congratulations.
Yeah, no, and again, that is like an artist, those are artists that had never performed at the Capitol Theatre. We met with them today, actually, where Roland Gauvin shared with us that it was Marc Chouinard that made their first booking for them nearly 50 years ago. So, and it's incredible that they've never performed at the Capitol Theatre. They're a group that everyone has loved seeing in beer gardens and festivals, and a lot of people remember the Colisée in 94, but they'd never played the Capitol. So it was our programming director who's done this work since 2009, Yolande Robichaud. She said, I'm going to reach out to them and see if they want to play in the Capitol. We said, oh, okay, if you think that's a good idea. We thought it was a good idea, but we had no idea that it would be so important at this time in the band's career that it will be their last public performance on October 11th. But yes, we're working very hard to find at least a couple more dates in our very busy fall.
Yes, thank you very much, Kim, for that. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, Madame Ades. Thank you, Kim.
Merci, conseiller Kingston. Conseiller Richard.
Councillor Richard. Thank you, Your Worship.
Merci pour la présentation.
I don't really have a question, but I'd like to make a comment. I'd like to thank you for your very interesting presentation. Good afternoon, Councillor Richard. How are you doing? Great, thank you. Well, we haven't seen each other for a while. And I used to see you at the Social Inclusion Committee.
3D imaging. This has got to be something hard to prioritize. Where do you go where?
It is, but it isn't. So our board is engaging in what I'm calling a strategic refresh. So we have a strategic plan, and part of our hope is to be able to map priorities in the next 5 to 10 years around innovation and other priorities. So what we're often hearing is conversations of like, well, we'd like a laser, or we'd like this, but let's think bigger and build a vision together. And that's our hope for the fall, that we'll start that process. So we will have clear direction, hopefully after this process. So I'll have more details, but our hope is that we're able to not only recognize opportunities, but really prioritize and meaningful impact on the system so that we can also measure the impact that it has on patient care and patient flow.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned Mrs. Jean Irving. I knew her quite well. What an amazing person. So I don't know if you've ever had a chance to meet her, but she's something else. So very inspiring to see what the foundation is doing from newborn care, groundbreaking brain treatments. I want to thank you and your team. I'm very happy to see you at the head of this. Thank you for and please involve your, oh my goodness, the team involved for your continued dedication. Hard to read two screens at the same time. Dedication to improving local health care for our residents and the communities around. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the support. I think a lot of the work that the City of Moncton is doing also feeds into the type of conversations we're having around community health centers and the impact and aligning needs. So I think as we go through this refresh process, we'll also have some opportunity to engage more actively to make sure that we are also responding to the social inclusion piece and others that we are all working on. So thank you for your questions and comments.
Keep us in the loop. Thank you.
Merci, conseiller Richard. Merci beaucoup, France.
Thank you, Councillor Richard. Thank you, France and Kim. You are at the helm of two groups that are absolutely essential for the quality of life of our citizens in the City of Moncton. So thank you for all you do. Madame City Clerk.
For council today, and staff name bank technical group, Glendale name change. And I believe that Paul Edgar is going to lead this.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir.
Good evening.
Could we bring up the presentation, please?
Est-ce qu'on pourrait afficher l'exposé, s'il vous plaît?
Good afternoon, Deputy Mayor and members of Council. As a follow-up to the October 28th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting and the subsequent Public Council meeting on November 4th, the Staff Bank Technical Group, just going to call it Technical Group from here, is presenting its further findings on the street naming confusion between Glendalee and Glendale Crescents. The Glendale Crescent is located in Ward 2, while Glendalee Crescent is located in Ward 4. The staff name, or the technical group, have received complaints from a resident on Glendale Crescent about misdirected packages reaching their address instead of Glendalee, and vice versa. As well, the same resident reported being visited by RCMP on a matter that was not at their address but allegedly occurred on Glendalee. Original research for the two streets showed that Glendalee Crescent was registered January 14th, 1974, while Glendale Crescent was registered 3 weeks later on February 1st, 1974. Glendalee Crescent has 14 residents, where Glendale has 19. Following the Committee of the Whole meeting in October, the developer of Valhalla Estates contacted City Council, explained that Glendalee Crescent was named after his spouse, Miss Glendalee Steeves. In November, Council postponed the decision on the renaming until administration could further review with emergency services and determine if any misdirected calls have occurred. Administration conducted additional research into the origin of Glendale with support from 2 members of our technical working group, both employed at Resurgo in research and cultural development. No evidence was found linking the name Glendale to the local area or any specific individual. As well as administration contacted NB911 to gather further information on calls placed to them and if any resulted in misdirection. They conducted a records review back to 2007 and could find no reports of emergency services responding to incorrect addresses. While there have been no reports of misdirected emergency services, either of these two streets, it is not to say that this could not happen in the future. NB911 indicated the names are very close and could create issues moving forward and recommends that one of the street names be changed. Changing just one of the names would significantly enhance the effectiveness of the 911 services and improve navigational clarity, ensuring that emergency responders can quickly and accurately locate those in need. When considering the naming of streets, due to a similarity in sound to another, priority is generally given to the street with the longest historical presence. Additional factors include the number of residents on each street, the street's cultural or historical significance to the community, and any legacy associated with the family that originally developed it. At this time, the Staff Name Bank Technical Group is looking for council support in renaming one of the crescents so the process with those residents may start. To expedite the process, we are also asking for council to assent to the name chosen by the majority of residents and to forego the option of allowing residents to suggest a name of their choosing, as this is felt that it would slow the process down and create more issues with emergency services. The actual process will involve contacting each resident to explain what is occurring and conducting a poll to allow them to select one of the proposed names listed in the report. Those names are Mantra, which is French. This name celebrates the work of Gerald LeBlanc, Moncton Mantra, his book, and published in 1997. Marvin is English and is named after J.A. Marvin, who started the Marvin's Biscuit Factory in 1907. The company continues operation until 1978. Terrouge is French and was the early Acadian name for Moncton. Once a name has been selected, the residents will be notified of the name change so they may change their mailing addresses. So Council Administration recommends that, given the possible impact on emergency services, that Moncton City Council approves the name change of Glendale Crescent, and that Council assent to start an expedited process for the renaming of Glendale Crescent by presenting the 3 selected names for the residents of the Crescent for their input, and that Council assents to the names selected by the majority of residents. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Merci beaucoup, Paul.
Thank you very much. Councillor Butler.
If I could,
Yes,
Madam Mayor?
go ahead, Councillor Butler.
So I would like to move alternative number 2, monitor the situation with emergency services for a period of 1 year. If issues arise during the time which would warrant changes to the street's name, the Name Bank Technical Group, the report, I would like to change that report back to council. I would like to say that you would go ahead and change the name of Glendale and just leave Glendalee as it is now. So what I'm really saying is for 1 year, we're going to monitor this because what is happening is Cisco's 911 has gone back to, or emergency services has gone back to 207. Now, one guy gets a package. I don't know if we want to change all the residents on 1 Street 14. And, I've been around this old block for a long time myself and bumped around with old police cars, and I've never gone to Glendale where it's supposed to be Glendale. So I think that, we can keep everybody happy, but if there is a situation that arises, then Glendale will stay the way it is. Glendale will then, but we should monitor it for a year to see what happens. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Councillor Radja, do you wish to second that?
I do.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Did you wish to speak? No?
No,
No, c'est bon. Any questions on this? There are none. Oh, Councillor Léger.
Thank you. I'm just curious, so they both happen to be crescents. And if one of them had been a road versus a crescent, would the same thing have happened? I mean, both have different postal codes. I'm just curious. They are very, very, very similar.
They are according to 911, they said that likely could have occurred at any time. It's been 51 years that these two have been in place, but they said changing the street extension would not help.
Would not help.
That's their opinion.
And then maybe my question, if we go with option 2, what happens, and maybe it won't be to you, but I guess maybe to legal, is what happens in terms of our responsibility waiting a year, and should something happen, then what? We are poised to make a decision that could avoid any confusion this evening, if we wish, or we can wait another year, which is fine, but what happens if something does occur in that year?
Go ahead.
Is it? Yes, I'm on. Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Lejar. I think the council report form addresses that question where if there is a liability to the city, obviously, if there is something where the city was advised that 911 services had recommended the changes. So I wouldn't go in further details in that because I think it's still advice that would require.
So if there's legal liability of the city, why is it an alternative that we should consider? Are we not putting the city at risk by doing that and putting ourselves at risk who are being asked to make the decision?
We would probably require council to give more advice on this. Would probably require to give council advice in private where it's legal. I wouldn't go in further details with that. But there is a note in the CRF with respect to that, and where it is obviously a risk, where there is a risk, right? Because the names are so close to one another, right? So I think that was put into the CRF.
But the risk is there. I guess maybe I'm baffled by if there's a risk, you're asking us to take that risk. So I don't know, maybe at this, and I don't know if I certainly will not vote in favor of. I think the risk is there and we've identified it, and so I feel that we should have more information before making that decision. So,
Monsieur le Gérant, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Madame la Maire Adjointe. Again, I think as our solicitor provided, we can take this back and if there's a requirement or a request for it to provide more detail on the legal risk. Vas-y, France.
I just wanted to mention that, just so council's aware, the recommendation before council is not what you are being, it is the alternative, right? So the risk associated with that is obvious. But I'm just saying, like, the recommendation before council is that what Paul just presented to council. So it's an alternative.
But but the alternative is what has been moved, not the recommendation that staff were recommending. So my question now becomes, first of all, why is it an alternative if we're at risk? And so therefore, that's why. And maybe we might be better just tabling this for now and getting some information before making that decision and putting the city at risk.
Advice with respect to what was moved this evening.
The advice, exactly, as to what was moved this evening.
Monsieur Legérand.
I guess we could, the option here is to postpone until August, the next August private, where we would provide legal advice to council.
Merci, Monsieur Gérard. So what is the wish of council? Conseiller Léger, vous avez fini votre question?
Yeah, I guess.
Councillor Leger, were you done with your question?
And something happens between now and August, are we legally at risk as well? Because we're postponing something that's in front of us. I just, you know, it probably will not happen. However, when there is, you know, liability that is there, I would think that we should be more cautious, or at least that's how I feel. So I don't know if perhaps we take a chance and postpone, but that's a decision that council have to make.
So again, we can provide you that legal advice in private at our next private meeting. And we'll allow our legal team to provide you exactly what that risk is. And then you'll have the information to be able to make a further decision at a future meeting.
Merci, Monsieur Gérard.
Thank you, Mr. CAO. Councillor Bourgeois. Thank you, Your Worship. I know that the people of Glendale might be displeased with me, but I cannot support this motion.
Position of potential liability if it does not follow NB 911's recommendation and if an incident were to occur. Merci.
Merci, Conseiller Bourgeois.
Thank you, Councillor Bourgeois.
I'll withdraw my motion and recommend the first one.
You will recommend. So you will move the first one and second Conseiller Edgett. Do you wish to second? No, you Conseiller Léger, seconded by Conseiller Léger. Conseiller Richard, are you there?
Oui, hello.
Oui.
I just want clarification. So, Councillor Butler moved the alternative number 1 or the true recommendation? The first.
Conseiller Richard, we're going with the recommendation, number 1.
That's what's made me. So, that's, I'm looking at the 14 residents that are now having to, we're going to be forcing a name change on them. And they have the choice of the 3 names that are being presented here tonight. I think they should actually have a chance to find their own name, let's say, if there's something that they would be interested in, have a full option, not only a partial one. So I would like to amend that motion and add after what says their input with an option to suggest another name if an explanation is included with the new name. And if no new names with explanations are brought forward, then it continues that council assents to.
So, merci, Conseiller Richard. So that's, you want to amend the motion, right? We
Correct.
add that to the motion. Madame la Greffière, could you read
If the mover and the seconder okay with that addition, that would be my first question.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. No, I wouldn't be interested in that. And the reason why is that we'd be postponing this forever for them 14 people to try to come up with a name. I think that's what we have a name bank for. If we have 3 names, select one, we'll make it there. I mean, you know, there's so many possibilities. This could be, if everybody's trying to get this done, and why I changed back was the regards to the possibility of some kind of legal assessment put on council. You know, if we put this off and let people keep trying to select the name, we'll be here forever. So anyway, I will go along with what the recommendation is. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci, Conseiller Richard. So,
So I moved the amendment. Is there anybody to, is there a second, or is that the way we're going, or?
does someone want to second Conseiller Richard's amendment? Conseiller Bourgeois. So how do we proceed for the vote on this? So we will vote on it.
We'll probably do a manual vote, but we have to vote on the amendment first. Just the wording of the amendment.
So can
And
you show us the motion that we will be voting on?
just one second. C'est déjà probably.
Just,
Conseiller Richard.
merci. Just like some clarification, in the council report form, you mentioned, or it's mentioned, administration is also recommending council forego the option of allowing residents to suggest a name of their choosing, as this would delay the process and could create issues with emergency services.
Correct. It could delay the process further by letting them select their own name.
So that's why you went to looking at 3 names that are possible.
Yeah, working with the legal department, that's what we came up with in order to expedite this and get it done as quickly as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Merci, Conseiller Richard. We are waiting for the motion.
Conseiller Richard, peux-tu voir ce qui est sur l'écran?
Councillor Richard, can you see what's on the screen? No, not yet.
Screen behind me. Yep. Ah, there you go. Le vois-tu, Conseiller Richard?
Now, do you see it, Councillor Richard?
Ça allait un petit peu plus long que ça. I was.
It was a bit longer than that.
So, and I was saying that so that it wouldn't drag on as long as we're talking about right now. So it was still to give them the chance to, if they had a good idea with something that was solid, an actual recommendation with a reason, an explanation. That's the way I was going. To actually give them a chance. Yeah, and then it continued what I had explained as well, a sense that council assents whatever the rest of the recommendation was there. So if
This
they
would
have
be the
nothing,
amendment. This would
Right.
be the amendment, then we would vote on the full motion as amended.
So this is the amended. Ça, est-ce que ça va avec la première partie de la motion?
Does this go with the first part of the motion? This is the amendment. So first we vote on the amendment, and then if council accepts this amendment, we will vote on the motion with the amendment.
The amendment.
Questions, Conseiller Bourgeois?
Ouais. Conseiller Bourgeois?
Merci, Madame la Maire. Quand j'ai
Thank you, Your Worship. When I supported this, maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that Councillor Richard wanted to consult residents on the three names and then give them the opportunity to propose a fourth one. That's what I had understood, and that's why I supported the motion. Maybe I misunderstood, but I'd like to know if I did understand correctly. That's exactly what I was suggesting. So we're taking something away from the residents. We should give them the chance to choose something, because otherwise we'll be like a bull in a china shop. We're going to say you're changing street names, and these are your choices. So I think it would be nice to give them the opportunity to come up with another option that suits them better. Why not? I'm trying to understand, Councillors Richard and Bourgeois. What we just read is not exactly what you'd like to see in the motion? Is this what you'd like to see in the motion? What was on the screen? No, that's not it. So can someone read to me the amendment that they would like? I can give it a whirl, Councillor Richard, and you can correct me. The second paragraph is very well.
By presenting the three selected names to the residents of the Crescent for their input, and that council assents to the name selected by the majority of residents. Juste après la virgule, là, selected names to the residents of Crescent, with the possibility of suggesting an alternative name. And that council assents to the name selected by the majority of the residents.
Puis c'est ajouté avec l'explication que...
And we would add the explanation that supports the street name they are proposing.
And let's not complicate this anymore. So let's go ahead, Madame la Greffière.
Okay, so you want to amend the second paragraph as the amendment, not as... Now, I might need some legal advice on this.
The second paragraph would remain verbatim until input,
Yes.
as well as giving the residents the opportunity to submit a fourth name with an explanation as to why they suggest this name, and that council assents to the name selected by the majority of the residents. Good to go?
Is that okay to be added? That's just the added. The paragraph would remain the same with that line in there. So it would read
Submit.
that council assent to starting an expedited process for the renaming of Glendale Crescent by presenting the three selected names to the residents of the Crescent for their input as well. And furthermore, that council directs the residents to submit their name recommendations with an explanation as to why they suggest this name, and that council assents to the name selected by the majority of the residents.
I just want to make sure that when we consult the citizens, we tell them, do you have any better alternative than the three that we have there? Right, Councillor Richard?
Yeah, and I think
So if
that's
it's-
what we're asking them. I hope that's what we're asking them. Because the way I had said it was with an option to suggest another name if an explanation is included with the new name, and if no new names with explanations are brought forward, that council assents to the rest of it. So
Mr.
if that's what you're reading, that's what I said.
I don't believe the council can direct residents.
No.
So
Well,
we'll
I
provide the
didn't- I didn't
opportunity.
say direct.
No, I know, but that's how it's written, so we just
That
need to
we can
modify
change
the
it.
language
Yeah.
to reflect that we provide the opportunity to residents.
Yeah, that's what I had said, with an option to suggest.
Conseiller Léger.
Conseiller Lejeune, go ahead.
Yeah, so then instead of direct the residents, you're going to say give possibility to the residents? Is that's what this,
Permit an
that's what
opportunity.
the city manager was saying? Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. That's fine, but there also is a criteria for our name bank. So we have to make sure that it fits the criteria that we establish for the selection of names in our name bank. So we just need to be clear on that. Otherwise, it goes against the policy that council established. Hence, probably why the suggestion to go with 3 names, but I think it gives an opportunity, and maybe it is, I don't know. Anyway, just have to keep that in mind that, or that it has to then go through the process of adding to the name bank.
Go ahead, Paul. Merci.
Just to clarify, any names that are selected by the residents outside of the names that we've already brought forward will have to be vetted with 911 and the other emergency services in the area. And as well, if it's not already in the name bank, we'll have to come back here to give you guys assent to that. Because it may not be a name that you like. And then, once we get there, we've got to go back to them to poll it to see which one out of that they want, out of those.
So it might be a good suggestion to allow staff to do their work on this. So how do we proceed so that we get this done? This is really, what is the motion? Monsieur Le Gérant.
Could I?
So I
something,
believe that there is an amendment to the motion that's been put forward. The amendment, the additional language needs to be voted on, and if it is agreed to by council, then that will be added to the entirety of the motion. That is the recommendation that's on the CRF to change the name of Glendale to whatever comes out of the process that's agreed to by council.
Conseiller Richard.
Ouais, je voulais juste répondre à
Councillor Richard, I just wanted to respond to Paul Edgar's comment.
the residents can come forward with something that works. At the end of the day, council is going to be deciding if that name goes forward or not. So it'll go through the process, and you know, what happens. I don't think this is that huge of an issue. Let's
So
see.
we have an amendment before us. Can we go to the? Conseiller Regid, go ahead.
Merci, Madame la Mairesse. I won't be voting in favor of that. I don't quite understand the urgency here. I was much in favor of us reviewing this over the next year and seeing what the actual problem was. I mean, if we look at names of streets, I'm just coming up with West Street. We've got a West Street and a West Lane. Do we have problems with those 2 streets?
Not that I know of, but they've been around for so long that everybody
I'm
knows.
just saying,
I know.
do we have
I
any
know.
problems with West Lane and West Street? Or, yes.
To the audience.
West Street? Yeah,
So,
no,
nothing's been reported to the. street
that's been
naming committee,
reported.
so,
Okay,
To us anyways.
good to know. Yes, I will not be voting in favor. Thank you, thank you.
Conseiller Regid. Does anyone else wish to speak? If not, we are going to proceed with the vote. So on the amendment, so do we do electronic or show of hands?
Electronic.
Electronic vote.
And the word direct is not there anymore. It shouldn't be. So should be showing that their council give the opportunity to residents. Can we see the results? Motion fails. Motion fails.
So the amendment has failed.
We go back to the original.
We will now go to the original recommendation. So do we do an electronic vote on this?
Yep, she's setting it up, I believe. There you go. Okay, can we see the results? 2 nay votes, Councillor Richard and Councillor Edgett.
So motion carried. Merci.
Thank you.
Madame la
Next, oops, sorry. Matas, Councillor Butler.
I just want,
Councillor
I'm sorry,
Butler.
I just wanted to make sure that Mr. Steves knows that the street will be staying the same, Glenda Lee, so you'll have no more worries about that street, that crescent up there. Thank you very much. Right there. Thank you, Glenda Lee. Love the name. Thank you, Your Worship.
The next item before council is statements by member of council, les exposés des membres du conseil. Conseiller Bourgeois.
Are there any statements?
Conseiller-
Conseiller Bourgeois.
Councillor Bourgeois, thank you very much, Your Worship.
Council made its initial decision in November 2023 based on false information provided by a leading member of council who told us that she had consulted with the Jewish community and that the community was okay
C'est
with
point of order, conseiller, conseiller Bourgeois. We don't want to go back. Whatever happened was happened. We are going to proceed with what's in front of us this evening. So we will move with the motion that is before us.
This is statements, right?
Wait a minute.
I'm not allowed to make the statement I
You can, go ahead.
Do I start over or? And that the community, the Jewish community, was okay with the city removing the menorah from in front of City Hall. In fact, the Jewish representative opposed the removal of the menorah, and he clearly communicated this to her. He confirmed it during my chat with him a few days later. I can't share details because what she told council was communicated during a private meeting, but I have the transcript of her words. Had our leading member of council reported the Jewish community's opinion correctly, I am convinced that the majority of council would not have made the initial decision to remove the menorah. I just wanted to share this with our citizens and especially those who belong to the Jewish community, to whom I offer my most sincere apology for the hurt that was caused by our initial decision, because I want to assure you that the majority of council had no intention of removing the menorah or the Christian manger, but was swayed to support their removal based on false information by one member. I believe that council would have adopted the policy on religious symbols before us in a few minutes, much earlier, and that we would have avoided the controversy and the horrible reputation given to our city in the aftermath of our initial decision, if not for that misinformation. Merci, Madame la Maire.
C'est conseiller Bourgeois, Madame la Greffière.
Next.
Thank you, Councillor Bourgeois.
Rapports et recommandations des comités et réunions à huis clos. This evening, there are 2 recommendations coming out of the Committee of the Whole meeting of July 7th, 2025. The first is that Moncton City Council approve the encampment response policy for the City of Moncton. The background on this is this policy outlines the City of Moncton's framework for responding to identified encampments guided by principles of respect, compassion, and collaboration. Recognizing the complex nature of homelessness, the policy prioritizes connecting individuals with appropriate supports and pathways to stable housing. It emphasizes a coordinated multi-agency approach involving collaboration between city departments, including community service, RCMP, and community policing, community partner agencies, and individuals experiencing homelessness. The goal is to ensure a balanced response that upholds public safety while addressing the needs and dignity of vulnerable populations.
Merci, Madame la Greffière. Could I have a mover?
Thank you, Madame City Clerk.
second the motion? No? Councillor Butler, merci. So on the questions, Councillor Bourgeois, did you wish to ask a question? No? No? C'est beau. Okay. No questions? We will go to the vote. It's electronic.
Unanimous. Results of the votes are unanimous. The next item from this meeting is that Moncton City Council approve the religious symbols on municipal property policy for the city of Moncton. The backgrounder on this is the above policy was developed to provide a process for religious groups wishing to display religious symbols on municipally owned or managed property. A jurisdictional scan of 10 Canadian municipalities was conducted to determine how they manage such displays. The goal of the policy is to be inclusive, respectful of religious diversity, and align with best practices across the country. Engagement was also conducted with a number of religious groups to secure their input and
Merci,
feedback.
Madame la Greffière. I need a mover, Conseiller Steves, Conseiller Butler. Merci. Any questions? No, no questions, so we'll go to the vote. Electronic. Okay.
The vote is unanimous.
There is, okay. So the motion is carried. Merci.
The next item is a report from administration, les rapports de l'administration. And this evening, there is one before council. There's a presentation of fire services review, and I believe that Chief Landry is going to introduce our consultant and the item.
Bonsoir, Monsieur Landry.
Bonsoir, Madame la mairesse adjointe.
Good evening, Mr. Landry. Thank you, Your Worship, and members of City Council.
We had gone to tender for a consultant company to do a fire service review, and they conducted that. And tonight, we're pleased to be here to report on those results and the recommendation. So Guy Degagné is one of the senior consultants from EMG Group, consultant that was selected, and he's going to present, and then we'll be open for questions after the presentation. So here we go.
Okay, well, hello everyone. Can you hear me? Are we okay to start?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, mairesse adjointe, membre du conseil. My name is Guy Degagné.
My name is Guy Degagné.
Identified by the fire chief, Landry. I'm here just to give you an overview of the reports, the fire service review report that we have done on behalf of the city of Moncton. The next slide, please. So again, that was a request of proposal that you're aware of, and the ideas of this was definitely to address the fire service in consideration with the city of Moncton's municipal plan and also the urban growth strategy to be able to pretty much address financial consideration, feasibility, sustainability of the program vis-a-vis the growth, the anticipation growth of the city of Moncton. Next slide, please. So in this project, emergency management, we had the project sponsor, which was the vice president of the company, Lal Kwan. He sends his regrets for health reason. Lal Kwan cannot join us today. We had the administrative support from ENG, and also we worked with Response Pro for the GIS section or portion of this analysis, which was about the fire station optimization or location optimization. So Response Pro is it's a project with EMG and the University of York in Ontario, where the engineering group would devised a web-based software to be able to do evaluation of fire service productivity or performance, stations, location performance, and also individual and simultaneous relationship of all the stations if there's more than one station as part of a fire department. So on this, I was the project lead. Again, I'm based in Ontario, in the Ottawa area. I'm retired Assistant Deputy Fire Marshal for the province of Ontario. I have 32 years of service with the province of Ontario in policing and also in the fire protection services, where the last 13 years I was the principal of the Ontario Fire College and responsible for accreditation or certification for the province of Ontario. Before I retired, I assisted in writing the legislation where firefighters in Ontario are now mandated to be trained. As part of the project, we had also Greg Ankyo, another consultant, who's the retired fire chief of the town of, or the city of Thunder Bay. And also we had Everett Cook, who's the current fire chief of St. Albert in Alberta. So that's the team that we had with a tremendous amount of experience to be able to cover all the different aspects and all the different facets of the fire service, to look at gaps and to see what recommendations or what elements of improvement of efficiency, effectiveness that we can propose during this fire service review. Next slide, please. So area of focus that comes pretty much from the request for proposal was the geographic information system, a standard of cover, building inventory, which is the part of the report is fire station location optimization. Also the fire protection services, all aspects of the fire services, aspect of suppression activities, aspect of training activities, aspect of fire prevention activities, public education activities, administrations of the service. We also look at the station location. We did feasibility and impact studies. We look at medical response and looked at the prevention, as I said, the three divisions of the Moncton Fire Service. We did look at all this in aspects that everything that we do is evidence-based, and it's also based on the best practices and different standards. And we'll talk about this. Next slide, please. So in the process of doing this review of the fire service, which is over a certain number of months, we do a research of gathering of information. So obviously, we do use different aspects of research. We do a data analysis looking at best practices because the documentations and all aspects and all recommendations are evidence-based. And then we make recommendations. Next slide, please. When we look at the data gathering, we did canvass the community. We had a community survey, we had a staff survey, and we also had council surveys. We also spoke with department heads, senior management, and also for the fires, the Moncton Fire Department. Also looked at the Office of the Fire Marshals of New Brunswick, look at some of their bulletins and informations. Community surveys, we had 132 members that responded to the surveys. The staff, we had 43 staff that responded to the surveys. And the council members, we had 3 members of the council that responded to the surveys. So generally speaking, we had a respectable response rates for the different surveys that assisted us also in doing our analysis. Next slide, please. Again, in the data analysis aspect of it is that with all the information that we've gathered, we also then use it's evidence-based, and we use some of the information. So We use the National Fire Protection Association standards. For instance, we use standard 1710 regarding operation and deployment of career fire services. We use also the standard called 1730, which is again operations and deployment of a fire prevention divisions. We also use a standard, for instance, 1401, which is a recommended practice for fire service training, reports, and record management. We also did a SWOT analysis with meeting with your senior staff, which is regarding the strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threat for the fire service for our analysis. We also met with senior members of your financial sections at the City of Moncton to be able to discuss aspects of budgets, operating budgets, capital budgets. So we reviewed all different elements, revenue generations practices. We looked at all that to be able to do our analysis. We also looked at the fire underwriter surveys. There was a survey or an analysis that was done already for the City of Moncton. We also looked at their documentation, their reports. And obviously, we look at municipal standards and regulations. As I mentioned, we looked also at your municipal plan and your urban growth strategy to make sure that we looked at anticipated growth and how we can do a review of the fire service based on the anticipated growth for the town of Moncton. And again, all this is based also on other best practices, depending on the sections, the area that we looked at. We make sure that we look at industry's best practices. Next slide, please. So as a result of the analysis and of the process of evaluating all aspect of the fire, the composition of a fire service, which is governance, administration, fire prevention, fire stations, facilities, training, equipment, apparatus. We also look at emergency operations because it's the fourth element often with the fire service that is related, emergency management, and knowing that your fire chief is also the emergency management coordinators. We looked at this, and we also look at communication, dispatching, overall communication systems, health and wellness. All these aspects are elements that we looked at. Looking at in its entirety, a comprehensive review of the fire service, EMG generated 64 recommendations in a 337-page document that have been submitted to the city and to the fire department. Of these recommendations, we have some that are operational recommendations and some that are strategic recommendations. So operational recommendations usually are a short-term recommendation that can mostly be addressed at low cost, that can be addressed by staff, that can address that are operational in nature, that can be addressed by staff. Other recommendations are strategic. Often there will be a large or financial investment and also requirements of council approval. So these are the recommendations, and I won't go through all the 64 recommendations. We're just going to look at some of the elements, and then we'll just concentrate on some operational recommendations that are highly prioritized and also strategic recommendations that are prioritized. Next slide, please. So when we look at the any question at any time, please let me know. So if anyone has any questions, what we have covered so far. Otherwise, I'll just move on to some of the recommendations. The overview, when we look at overview, generally speaking, let's say at the 30,000 feet level, when we look at it, some of the recommendations that we made, operational recommendations, is the bylaws. I know that you have your bylaw H621, which is a bylaw related to the fire protection services for the city of Moncton. Where we looked at it is we looked at the bylaws and to make sure that elements of the bylaws talks about aspects of prevention, aspects of fire burning, some aspect of the fire service. we in our evaluations, we see that going forward, the fire chief should have an annual review and updates the bylaw as needed, and at least provide some support to the council and to the city of Moncton as to changes that may be required as needed from the needs and circumstances of fire protection services within Moncton. Generally speaking, we looked at the bylaws, and we certainly prefer bylaws that are maybe a little bit more explicit as to the services, the level of service that is provided by the city. You may want to look, for instance, at the city of Fredericton that speaks about the chief, the roles and responsibilities of the chief, the role and responsibility of the fire departments, that identified as a certain level, the level of service that is provided. With this, it provides you with a better understanding, overview of the fire service, and also for the staff having a better vision of what the fire service is and what are the services that are provided by the fire service. That way you can determine what services, and it eliminates issues of inefficiencies or that we may find sometimes because of not really understanding what we have an idea is what the fire department is, what the role and responsibility of fire services is, but that sometimes if it's not iterate or explicitly there, then sometimes there's a creeping of duties or responsibilities. So for that aspect, when we looked at it as an overview, we recommend that maybe the fire chief annual reviews and based on the needs and circumstances of the city with respect to fire protection services, what they should be offered, and be a little bit maybe more explicit as to what the bylaw would be indicating or regulating. The other aspect of it as an overview has to do with the standard operating guideline. We certainly commend the fire departments to have an exhaustive list of standard operating guidelines. However, in our review, the guidelines are mostly the responsibility of the fire chief and pretty much transformative in his leadership. Chief Landry certainly works with members of the departments, with the senior staff to be able to review and to have some diligence as keeping up to date the standard operating guidelines. But our suggestion is also to engage the staff at different levels in creating what we call a committee to be able to look at the standard operating guidelines, which is there's so many of them that is not only on the shoulders of one person, but with a committee that be able to review all these different standards. So I would certainly, that's a recommendation that we make to be able to look at maybe having a committee that is made of different members at the different levels, lieutenants, captains, prevention side, training side, and also suppression side. And as a committee to be able to review the standard operating guidelines instead of being on the shoulders of only one person. Next slide, please. When it comes to the administration, general speaking, when we look at the administration, the municipality should review its council meeting structure to ensure that the fire chief reports quarterly to the council in view of the peculiar high risk associated with fire protection services. You would just notice here that when we did our review, administratively speaking, is that the city of Moncton organizational structure have a fire chief that reports to a manager, and I know that you have all your managers that report to the CAOs. That being said, the bylaw clearly states that the fire chief is responsible to council, although it says that it's through a manager. There might be a reporting relationship with the manager, but the high risk associated with fire protection services, your structure demonstrate a dotted line associated with the Kodiak Regional Policing Authority. Policing and fire are two very high risk, and in our review, we recommend, it's only it's recommendations, that the fire chief does report to the council quarterly. So there should be a little bit more of a relationship between fire and the council to understand what are the issues with fire services. You may get some from the manager of the service. However, as we mentioned, for us, due to the peculiar high risk associated with fire protection services, the same relationship you have with policing as to there should be a certain aspect of a direct rapport, council and fire chief. The other recommendation, administratively speaking, is that the administration support position to be increased by 1 staff. We know that our research and our review of the department, that historically there was 2 admin staff. We know that systemic to the fire service has always been the clerical elements. Like, this is not just a mountain issue. This is, I will say that it's systemic of the fire services across Canada, with all the services I dealt with, that we tend to undervalue the clerical aspect. The mountain fire service is an administration aspect of it, as a prevention division, as a training division, as a suppression division. There's a high number of staff, equipment, and also that is involved. And a lot of the elements falls under one administrative support, or it really falls into staff. Please, no disrespect, but it's highly paid staff that are doing clerical, not to minimize clerical work, but when we look at efficiency and effectiveness, there would be efficiencies. Throughout the report, we did realize that there are reporting issues and administrative issues with all divisions, with prevention divisions, with prevention division, training divisions, and also the suppression division. Survey, for instance, staff were had a little concerns about the platoon chiefs, spending so much time doing administrative works that is distracting from doing operational work. We've seen the same thing in prevention, where prevention officers will spend lots of time. It is distracting for them to be able to do some prevention, some inspections, or some fire investigation functions. We did see the same aspect when it comes to the training elements, where you have training officers that are spending a lot of time developing programs, developing lesson plans, developing training records. And then we see, generally speaking, we'll talk about that on all these different aspects. We talk about record management system, which could be easily improved by having support, a clerical support. So we certainly suggest that one element to be looked at is to be able to have consideration to an administrative support staff. Again, this is one FTE that will have to be improved on this, and we're looking at between 47,769 to 63,833. And the document specifically will talk about the cost that would be associated to this. There is a cost associated with, and also the fact of having one more staff, administrative staff assigned to the department. Next slide, please. When we looked at the Division of Fire Prevention and Public Education side of it, one of the recommendations, looking at the departments, is that we should investigate expanding the information technology on Fire Prevention Division specific software. And again, that's the old aspects of the clerical elements, where most of the reports, more of the information is manually. So when we did our research and we gathered the information, some of the information we could gather, some of the information was harder to retrieve from the different software, different methods of record keeping that is there. So I know that the fire services, through the tutelage or to the leadership of the fire chief, the current fire chief, is working on a new record management system or fire department system. However, we need to make sure that there's modules that are prevention modules that would be a part of this, if not a software in itself, to be able to have proper record management of inspections, to be able to facilitate the frequency schedules, also type of inspections, inspection follow-ups that is required. So on that elements, we saw some inefficiency at this level, and we recommend that we need to look at software that would assist in record management keeping of the prevention. And public education, what events we attend, if we're attending any of them. And obviously that falls into the elements of, by not having a good record management system, we know that public education is one area that is not as strong due for personnel maybe, and some aspects of what area that we concentrate and what is being prioritized. But the prevention side of it, the public education side of it is definitely not as efficient. Having a software would assist in finding inefficiencies and finding where area of concentration or where we need to prioritize the exercise or the functions of fire prevention and public education. We should look also at the Moncton Fire Department to have the position of Division Chief of Fire Prevention. Again, discussing and meeting with the departments, going and doing a review, because we did a site visit and we met with staff. We visited all your divisions. Similar to your training division, where you did add a division chief, having the 4 prevention officers right now, they're very autonomous, and it is very hard. The fire service is a paramilitary system. It's a scalar organizational structure. Really, it's a top-down, and they all have uniforms, they all have shoulder flashes and badges, and do understand that the authority comes and they're expecting a certain reporting system, a very transactional relationship in the fire service, being a paramilitary system. Right now, you have 4 fire prevention officers that will report directly to the deputy chief. Deputy chief that is very busy in their function, that's also as the function of the bylaw with them. So in meeting the staff and looking at the fire prevention and looking at the amount of the performance of the departments, having a division chief will certainly improve. It would improve in the fact of providing direct day-to-day supervision to the staff. It would also ensure program developments that would align with the department's strategic goals. We will also allow an oversight of the performance and accountability to the fire prevention staff right now, because they're very autonomous. So they're pretty much in a situation where they would certainly benefit from some supervisory or some oversight. The other one that we looked at as a recommendation is to add 2 fire prevention officer positions. One should be dedicated primarily to public life safety education, to the public education side, because obviously when we speak and we look at the program, there are concerted efforts to do public education. It is known from the chief down, from the deputy chief. However, we're minimum on the life safety education programs that is delivered. Why? It's because of, again, the staffing. It's not the staff performance. It is absolutely not. I'd like to just make sure that we understand that in the review of the program, there's good performance of your staff, very diligent to be able to attend fire scene, fire investigations, to do fire inspections. There's a diligence to do elements. But however, when we look at the bulletin 2015-2 from the Office of the Fire Marshal, they're required to have a fire inspection frequency schedules based on 12 months, 24 months, and 36 months, and what the priority, what type of buildings needs to be inspected. So the pressure of having to do the inspections, which we do fall short of meeting the requirements of the Office of the Fire Marshal, But the reality is that then it impacts on public and life safety education. It also impacts on fire investigation impacts. We are concentrating on high-risk inspections. We're doing a total, and we see over the years that's been a constant increase of numbers of inspections being conducted, but mostly you're doing inspection of high-risk building. And with your urban growth study that looks at mostly intensification and also medium to high density structures, which was pretty much more having vertical instead of horizontal growth in building structure, meaning that we're looking at more high rises, low rise, medium rises. These are buildings that need to be inspected. Will be more of them. There'll be more of a stress on your staff to be able to perform that. We do believe that it will impact your public and life safety or your public education tremendously unless we add fire prevention officers and at least one that would be dedicated to public and life safety education. The other recommendation of your division, your fire prevention public education, is that develop clear policy and procedure fire prevention division program. Again, it comes back to the overall elements of having your SOGs and having a committee. When it comes to the fire prevention and public education, and again, this is systemic of most fire services, the fire service tends to be suppression centric and have a lot of policies and procedures or standard operating guidelines that are suppression orientated. And again, often we don't have as much policies or guidelines for training, for instance, or for fire prevention and public education. There should be an emphasis on developing specific operating guidelines for fire prevention programs. There are some, but again, in the overall scheme of what the fire prevention division is offering as service of fire investigation, of prevention, of inspections, the frequencies of the inspection, the type of building, what the record management is, what is the follow-up for inspections. That being said, there should be specific policies. At this point, some elements that is also showing inefficiencies is with a lack of policies and procedure or SOGs, standard operating guidelines. Next slide, please. When it comes to the training division, specific to training divisions, when we looked at the aspects and some of the gaps and some of the elements, one of the elements that we looked at, interestingly enough, is the overtime budget. What training the staff, bringing the staff for some aspects of training at the training towers, training during the day. There's a certain aspects of overtime that, interestingly enough, when we looked at it, the city budget a certain amount, $76,000 in overtime. But overall, it's an overall budget. The budget is not really divided on what is associated with training division. So to look at the efficiencies of the departments as how much overtime and what really is the operational cost of the training divisions. One of the area that we see is on the overtime. For instance, fire prevention officers attending fire scenes, depending on the fire investigation you have that year, obviously after hours, then it is part of that overtime budget. So it seems to be a little bit of a mix of prevention and also training, part of that budget, which really does not paint the right pictures of how much overtime budget it costs for suppression staff attending training, internal, external training. So on that aspect of it, there should be a better way of categorizing and identifying the budget for associated and the requirements of what is needed, especially in view of your anticipated growth, where obviously if we have more of a certain type of buildings, if the population is going to double, if the fire service is to grow, obviously we do believe that there should be a better tracking of budget. for the training division. Another recommendation is to add 2 training officer positions to the training division. Again, this is in anticipation of the growth and also looking at your urban growth study that you did and high intensification and also population densities where the growth is. So, and if part of that growth requires, later on, we're going to be talking about fire station optimizations, but generally speaking, if we looked at adding staff, if we're looking at growing, there will be a need. Right now, again, the training officers, again, very tremendous performance. We need to commend the management of the fire service for what you're doing with 4 staff and being able to provide the quality of training that is provided right now. However, it's not a work issue. It is a staffing issue where we're not doing as much work. Specialty trainings are not being always fully comprehensive, just because you have 4 training officers. And also part of the training officers, which comes associated with the next recommendation, is that you also have an extra duty associated with the training department, which is the logistic aspects of the fire department. Equipment, replacement of equipment, repairs of equipment, the SCBA, the thermal imaging cameras, the hazmat equipment, so or ladders for the trucks or nozzles. All this aspect, unfortunately, falls because of where the department and the way the department is set up, has fallen under the training division aspect of it. For that reason, it distracts the officers from doing their training and also doing the proper record management system, which is the next recommendations. So we can see that there is a domino effect of the departments of not having a clerical administration, not having a record management systems, of adding functions of logistics for the department. For that reason, we recommend that there is tremendous amount of money involved in your equipment and apparatus, and to be able to manage the equipment, where the equipment is, where it's going out, when it's coming in, what equipment is required to be purchased, PPE, not, like I said, equipment as to specialty equipment for some technical rescues, equipment that are used every day. If the equipment is available or not, or if it's out of service, there should be consideration. There's enough work there to create a position dedicated to managing the logistical needs of the departments. And finally, the learning management system. Again, another aspect is that maybe has to do with the clerical aspect of it. Then that there would be maybe a more of an emphasis on one of addressing the need of tracking and reporting. Right now, it's done very much manually. When we visited the department, there's many filing cabinets with information about training records. However, I know that the software that the fire department is acquiring may assist with this. We need to make sure that there's a module for the training divisions to be able to track and to be able to look at develop training schedules, annual training schedule, regular training schedules, specific training schedules, tracking of the training, and also for career development, what are the requirements of your staff, of the fire department staff, to be able to be promoted, what training they require at different levels for their for specialty training, as officer level training. We know from the surveys that one area that people and the staff were concerned was, for instance, officer training. Again, we spend a lot of efforts in suppression-centric training, which is mostly the everyday aspect of a firefighter training. And unfortunately, where we're lacking in efficiency, we find in this review falls into specific officer training, succession planning training, specialty or technical rescuer training aspects. So these are the elements that we see. So a management system would be able to identify the area, a better streamlining, a better developing a yearly or bi-yearly or tri-yearly models to make sure people are being trained, and also by increasing, it will gives you a very good picture of how many staff that you require to be able to do the functions of the training efficiently. Next slide.
Guy?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Conrad. I wonder if you could speed it up a bit. The council has some more items to discuss there, and already been 45 minutes. So.
Yes.
Thank
okay.
you.
I'm sorry about that. I will definitely do that. Suppression again. So we looked at when we look at the suppression aspects, then we looked at an additional of one company of aerial apparatus. So obviously we look at the functions, and we look at the anticipated growth, and especially related to intensification, and also related to density. So we do believe that looking at the suppression side, there must be we recommend that the City of Moncton looks at adding 20 additional staff to accommodate for a aerial apparatus, a fourth aerial apparatus unit. One of the other recommendation is that again, when we're going to look at the optimizations, fire service optimization, is that if there is if we accept the recommendation that we'll talk about in the fire station location of a 6 fire station, then we do require that there should be a staff with 2 crews per shift, which will require 40 more firefighters. Again, the report provides you with the estimate cost and the implementation process of doing this. One of the aspects related to medical calls is that right now, there's about 53% of your calls that are medical related. There's also the demographic changes, the homelessness issues that is growing and different aspects, and also the growth that you're expected for your time, for your city. So then we do look at these elements. Right now, currently you're responding with some apparatus, large apparatus. There is an issue of inefficiencies with large apparatus responding to medical calls. We recommend that we use an RRV, which is a rapid response vehicle, a smaller vehicle specific for the mission, for medical call. We also, in consultation with the fire chief, and also looking at sustainability and the financial aspect of the departments, the realistic aspect is to look at maybe a voluntary rotations or rotation aspects of 2 firefighters per shifts, which will be a total of 8 for 4 platoons, and 2 relief personnel that would be able to operate and to be able to provide the RRV. The beauty of the RRV is that it's also another vehicles that can be there for also to assist on the fire aspect. They're firefighters, and they can assist on other calls too. Next slide. On facility apparatus and equipment, we did a fire service optimization location, looking at the stations, where they're located, looking at your growth, your anticipated growth, looking at intensification, and also density aspect of it. On that aspect, when we use the GIS and we use the aspect to optimize the performance of the response time of the fire of the stations, we recommend that relocation of Brandon, St. George, and Botsford Station, and the addition of a 6th station. Again, we looked at given the situation right now of growth, and given the fact of changes in the government, changing in aspects of immigration policies aspects, depending what your growth will be, our recommendations when we looked at it is maybe to add the 6th station first, and then after that, especially because of branded stations, St. George stations, they're over 60 years old. Life expectancy of stations are about 50 years of age. And the reality is, we look at the fire stations, we do an analysis of effectiveness, efficiency of the fire station. These two fire stations fall short of being efficient and effective, and they should be replaced. The Botsford Fire Station is a newer station. However, there's a health and safety issue. There's also encroachment of the station very close to the road to a main artery. So there, and also no room for growth with anticipated growth of the city. So we should look at this. So that's why we identified these three stations, the Caledonia Station and Hilder Guard stations are very nice stations. In fact, Hildegard is a great station that could be a model for developments of a sixth station. The 6 stations will definitely require purchase of apparatus for the 2 working crews, so that we definitely will need to increase our number of apparatus. If this is a recommendation that is accepted for the adding 20 staff for an aerial ladder truck, obviously we need to purchase an additional ladder truck. When it comes to the rapid response for medical calls and understanding the large number of your percentage of calls being medical in nature, if the recommendation of improving on the RRV or to have an RRV team, then you'll need to purchase 1 rapid response vehicle. You should also maintain 4 response-ready spare apparatus. The standards, the NFPA standards, the best practice is that for every 7 vehicles, we should have 1. We should also have a spare vehicle or part of spare or reserve that we call that for when the other vehicles break down. So for that reason, we looked at your models, and you should maintain 4 response-ready or spare apparatus, 2 engines and 2 ladder truck. The Mountain Fire Service manages its fleet, and that the 2 mechanics of the City of Mountains are managed by the Mountain Fire Department. Yes, right now, this is great models that you have, shared services and working with your Public Works. The Public Works mechanics should have a better relationship with the fire chief and the fire department to look at the trucks, the apparatus. In the surveys, in meeting everyone and discussing it, there's some issue with equipments when they are being pulled out, when they are being repaired, with little or minimal notice to the fire service, or maybe to implication of what the impact it will have on the service for the city or the operation of your stations. Also, the area that you're covering and your local service district that you have, or the area outside of your municipality that is not covered with fire hydrant, you should seek Superior Tanker Shuttle accreditation. That would assist the residents for their insurance purposes to reduce, and will also bring a higher standard to your fire department. Next slide, please. And when we look at emergency management, we did know that the fire chief is also the emergency management coordinator. Again, it's a function that's added to the portfolio of the fire chief. So one of the recommendation is that a manager position or an emergency management coordinator position be created to support the fire chief. It could be under the fire chief again to maintain this. But that position would be there again, not to distract the fire chief with the functions of being fire chief, but right now, as a fire chief, as the bylaw, and also as the emergency management, there's a lot of different functions and there's a lot of different hats that are being worn. On that aspect, there could be a better communication with your neighborhood municipalities, Riverview and Dieppe, to be able to have a joint emergency coordination center. Right now, you do have your emergency coordination center at the City Hall. There might be a possibility of joining the fire dispatch in Dieppe and being able to have more of a holistic approach to emergency management, working also in partnership with Riverview and Dieppe. And that being said, the same aspect that we noticed with the mutual aid plan is also to have a unified municipal emergency management plan, working with all the different mutual aid plans and working with ZEP Riverview. That could be a models that the relationship of working with the two municipalities, or how the mutual aid plan could work. Next slide, please. On the financial aspect of it, again, as we mentioned earlier, the fire prevention and training divisions, there should be a little bit of review of the funding formula. That when we looked at it, it's not very clear as to how the operating budget is distributed, and maybe there should be a review of the formula and how it is distributed. Overtime costs, we talked about it already, of the way it is, aspect of not being as identified. So there must maybe way of to be able to mitigating the inflating costs that is associated with the overtime, just by looking at more and maybe itemizing more the elements and where the overtime is coming from and where the overtime are accrued. We should also look at other sources of revenues. We find that there's ways, the fire services has way of creating revenue from inspection, fire alarms. We could look at these City of St. John's fire department's initiatives on that, where they're recovering. There could be easily thousands of dollars, like hundreds and thousands of dollars recovered from some of the services. For instance, short-term accommodation. Short-term accommodations are one area where people have businesses, all these B&B, Airbnb, and they're collecting and they're making tremendous amount of money. There's some aspects where it doesn't affect your general population by recovering some of the costs from these businesses. False alarms, the number of alarms that you're having, inspections, different type, like I said, short-term accommodation inspections. There's ways that the departments, when we looked at your revenue generations, there is definitely potential for growth in this area and the potentials for generating quite a bit of revenue as part of the operating budget, and also to assist in the operating budget of the Moncton Fire Department. Next slide, please. Again, that gives you a very overview. There are a total of 64. There are rationales for every single recommendations. We also propose costs that associate with this. We also prioritizing by giving you a timeline of a short-term, medium-term, or long-term to be able to implement the recommendations. There are only recommendations for you to review. And again, we'd like to thank the Moncton Fire Department that have been assisting us in developing this fire service review. They've been very candid and very good at providing us assistance, and also assisting us during our visit. So if you have any questions, I would be glad to entertain any of your questions you may have.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Desgagnés.
Thank you, Mr. Desgagnés. Yes, we do have questions. Councillor Bourgeois. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Desgagnés. I must admit that I did not finish the reading of the 350-page report, but my questions will be based on what I was able to read and, of course, on your presentation. My first question is directed not at you, but to the city manager. I'm struggling to understand what you're expecting from us from this recommendation.
Review will be implemented as resources permit. So when do we go through the report, say we agree or we don't disagree with the recommendations, and not and brought forward for council consideration, but or brought forward for council consideration when required as part of the annual budgeting process. And then in the risk analysis, it says accepting this fire service review does not commit council to any part of it. Et ma dernière question sur celle.
And my last question about that first question is that in one of the recommendations, it says, in the future, the fire chief will review and update the regulations every year. I'm assuming this means bylaw H621, which is a council responsibility, not the fire chief's responsibility. So is it possible to clarify what is expected of council at this point in response to this report? And also what's expected in the future with regards to the modification of bylaw H621? Thank you for the question. The first recommendation were operational recommendations, so they don't require any increased budgets. It's just updating how things are done in order to accommodate the recommendation. There are other recommendations that have already been implemented. If you remember, about a month ago, we had approved the fire prevention director.
Also understanding that, as Mr. Desgagnés indicated, the financial implications of all these recommendations can be significant, and our finance group, as well as with the chief and the fire department, will be coming through and bringing forward some recommendations on how to address some of those recommendations, regardless if it's around the aerial apparatus or if it's around other elements such as a new fire station and so on that are being recommended. So those are, I guess, under evaluation and will be brought forward for consideration from council. So at this point in time, I think our approach was really to, as we know, it's been a long-awaited report, to bring it forward to council with the early evaluations or reflections from the chief and the team, as well as an ongoing conversation, knowing full well that those recommendations, all told, are significant.
Because I think usually when we get this, these are consultant reports. And thank you very much. We usually receive them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think in this case, especially, we should ask staff to come back with if it is a 15-year plan, I've read somewhere that it's an estimated cost of $200 million over 15 years. How are we going to spend $13.3 million a year on average when the budget for the whole fire is barely more than that? So I think there should be a motion that we receive the report and that we ask staff to go through it, come back to council and say, well, okay, this recommendation doesn't make sense, or this one is priority, should be done first, or that kind of game plan. Because I don't want to come to budget come end of November or whatever it is that we will discuss budget and say, well, this year we're going to do this. And then next year we're going to do that. I think we need a big game plan, an overview of where we're going to go over the next, if it's 15, 12, 20 years, whatever it is. So I'll probably make that motion at the end. My second question, là, je vous dirige ça, Monsieur Desgagnés. Est-ce qu'il y a eu dans votre
And Mr. Desgagnés, this question is for you. Have you considered having one fire department for 3 municipalities? If Dieppe builds a fire station close to Highway 15 and we build one near Highway 15 as well, maybe we could do something to avoid those duplications. To answer your question, the goal of the review itself was to provide recommendations for the fire department of the city of Moncton. So we did not analyze whether or not it would be justified to look to improve services by merging our services with those of other municipalities such as Dieppe or Riverview. Would that bring about improvements? Well, we could ask the question, but it was not among the goals of the review. And it didn't fall under the purview of the review. Okay, thank you. Next question. You recommend that we relocate 3 of the fire stations, including Buttsford. That's about 13 or 14 years old. It seems to me that 13, 14 years old and building a new fire station and then relocating it. Could you explain things in a more detailed manner? Would you have a map? Are you working on a map showing where those fire stations are going to be relocated and why you are recommended to relocate Buttsford? Because 10, 12 years ago, we were told that it would be good for a generation. And here we are, 14 years later, and it needs to be relocated. You are right. We need to take into account the number of years of service of the fire station. So you're right, a fire station should be good for about 50 years of service. So 2 fire stations in the city of Moncton are beyond that. So when we did the analysis, we had to take into account the forecast growth of Moncton. So there's an analysis at the end of the document on the fire station. We looked at the overall performance of the fire station. We did not do an engineering analysis about the integrity of the structure itself or the building, but what we did was analyze the performance of the fire station. And when we looked at the Buttsford station, there were issues in terms of safety. The way it was built, because it was built close to a major intersection. So we had to develop a way of allowing fire safety vehicles to get into traffic in a safe manner because it's a busy intersection. So there's a safety aspect that's quite significant. So safety for staff or the firefighters, and also for public safety for the people using the roads. And also in terms of administration, so offices are on the 2nd floor. So the amount of office space is fairly limited in this building, thus limiting administrative capacity. Looking at available office space, it does not accommodate the planned growth for the city of Moncton and planned growth of fire departments. We need to take a look at whether additional staff needs to be assigned to this fire station or if additional vehicles need to be sent there. And if and in the current state, the fire station cannot accommodate an increased number of vehicles. So like I said earlier, this poses a certain number of issues in terms of staff safety and public safety. So we concluded that this fire station should be, maybe not in the short term, but on the longer term, to be relocated. So the report talks about 3 fire stations. So Buttsford needs to be considered for relocation in the medium term. But in the document, we also address financial considerations and various options. But eventually, we should consider relocating the Buttsford fire station. That's a given. So I hope you will see, you will have a better understanding of our recommendation in light of the information that I just provided. But it's mostly because of the limitations of the Buttsford fire station. Well, I'm looking forward to reading the report. My last question for you. Does your report set out goals or targets, like measurable indicators against which the city council will be able to measure success or performance of our investments, such as a reduced number of fires or shorter response times or those kinds of things? Yes, the report discusses because we did an analysis of geographic information system rather.
C'est quoi la performance des stations?
And performance indicators for fire stations. So the report explains how we can optimize operations at each fire station. It's in connection to the relocation issue as well, because those recommendations were based on performance analysis for each fire station, response times for the various stations in various situations. So all of those aspects have been taken into consideration in order to determine optimal locations for fire stations, taking into account future growth for the city of Moncton. Thank you very much. So I will conclude with a resolution.
Their feedback, as well as a 15-year implementation plan with costs, measurables, etc. Merci, Madame la Maire.
Merci, conseiller Bourgeois. Donc, est-ce que
Thank you, Councillor Bourgeois. Councillor Léger, are you seconding the resolution that's proposed by Councillor Bourgeois? So let's continue with questions and then we'll come back to this. Councillor Léger, thank you, Your Worship. I would like to thank the consultant and everybody involved in the process.
Presented to us before we began our discussion on what to do with the assessment freeze that we have this year and so on. I mean, this is really daunting. I think there's a few things we've talked about over the past number of years, you know, the growth and so on. I think what this does is it puts it in perspective, and that's really important in terms of having a plan. A lot of the recommendations, though, are 1 to 3 years. I sort of, you know, look at this and think about it, and it kind of mirrors what we've had to do with police services, where we, you know, for a number of years, for a variety of different reasons, didn't keep up with the demand. And so over the last several years, we've, you know, increased by a large number our officers at the Kodiak Regional Police. So I guess a few questions in terms of the amounts, and just a lot of this stuff makes sense. So for me, it's okay. It is going to be important to have a plan for the next, I'd say probably the next 10 years. Beginning this year, I don't think we push this forward and say we'll start next year. You know, we'll have a new council next year, so therefore I think that, you know, this is top of mind now. There's a few recommendations in here that you know, are, nothing is low-hanging fruit because it's going to cost us money to do it, but there are things that make a lot of sense. For years, we've talked about the wear and tear on our apparatus. I've seen the Quints when I was elected in 2012. We bought 2 Quints, and then you know, life expectancy was shorter. Yeah, there were some flaws in terms of the design, perhaps, and so on. But the bottom line is we see this every day. So one of the recommendations is that smaller vehicle that we've talked about that go to medical calls. 53% of our calls for service, or your calls for service, are medical calls. So these are things that I'd like to see in this year's budget. And if it means that, you know what, taxes, we can't hold the tax rate, well, we can't hold the tax rate. And I'd like the general population to agree or disagree. And I've not met anyone that would argue and say, well, you know what, I would prefer a tax cut versus having an adequate number of firefighters. So I think the recommendations are going to be really important. Some of them aren't, I mean, they're expensive, but on the other hand, you know, you're looking at, if you were to tie this into a regular approach, you know, we're looking at first of all, the ability to provide the funding, but secondly, how long would it take for firefighters to be trained? So for example, I'll give you an example. If we were to this year look at the addition of that rapid response medical team, I think that is 8 officers, 8 firefighters and 2 relief. And 2 vehicles, or 4, is it 2? 1 vehicle. So you're doing it over the continuum. How quickly could that happen? Could that happen in a year? What are the hiring requirements like? And just give us an idea in terms of that. And also, in doing an analysis as we come back, is what would that mean to the savings on our equipment and things along that line?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Leger. So every year, what we do, we've been hiring every year for as long as I've been here. So basically, we post the jobs in January. They start their training on early April, and they're on the floor before the summer, so in mid to late June. So that's not an issue to hire the staff and buying a vehicle and equipment. So that's definitely not an issue. The challenge that is to put a number on how much it's going to save on the wear and tear. Of course, we're going to do analysis, and that vehicle is going to be where the calls are, where most of the medical calls are, and we know that. We have that data. So it's to maximize that, but it's not just the wear and tear in the vehicles, the wear and tear in the firefighters. So compassion fatigue and that stuff. So that's a reality that we're facing. So for all those reasons, it's very important that we look at that, and it'll be part of the budget process discussion. But yeah, within 6 months, we can have that in place. Of January 1st.
Yeah, because I think that's really important. You know, when we look at even some of the data that was released, I think, on our website today indicates that for, and you can correct me, for regular house fire or a house fire, approximately 17 members would go to that fire, but for a high rise is 38.
Correct.
And we're seeing a number of extra buildings being built and so on. So I think that's really important. I mean, the report is long and the report is thorough, I have to say. But for the first time, I think we're beginning to understand the importance, maybe in a greater way. I mean, we know fighting fires is important, protecting our city. We also see wildfires occurring in other parts of the area. The accreditation for that super tanker, I think, accreditation would be very good. Additional fire hydrants in areas that are more rural but are within our boundaries. So, so I think, you know, I certainly feel that we need to have that moving forward information for budget time, and we have to make tough decisions and let the general public know what it is that this looks like, because people perhaps feel a false sense of security too. We see fire trucks all over the place, but we don't really understand, you know, the magnitude of the burnout, for example, and the fatigue on personnel. So I see a number of them there, and thanks for being here. And I think it's clear now that with at least a roadmap, which is what we need to see for the next 10 years, it will help us because our growth is projected to continue. So anyway, I want to thank you. I think it's very timely. So let's see what the next steps. And would you said 6 months, but we don't have 6 months for budgeting purposes. So will you come back in, let's say, September with recommendations to begin with where this fits in our budget for this year? I would hope that we would see something maybe to Jacques in terms of some implementation of some of this. Like, you can't hold back. We can say no, And maybe you won't recommend it, but at least that would be there so that we'd have a time plan, a time frame. Some of these are $3.5, $4 million initial costs. I think that's roughly what that is for the 8 members plus the other 2. So, those are figures we need to talk about, and not the $200 million that scares everyone over the next 15 years. But let's break it down into what's that going to mean every year. Similar to what we've done with protective services in terms of the RCMP. So hopefully we'll see that, Mr. City Manager, in September. Merci.
Conseiller Légère, merci beaucoup. Conseiller
Councillor Légère, thank you. Councillor Richard. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mr. Desgagnés.
Services provided by Moncton Fire Department that you might not always be taking into account. I truly appreciate the recommendations, suggested implementation, timelines, costs. It should help us put a plan together, and it also brings up lots of questions, as you've seen. I appreciate Conseiller Bourgeois' motion. I think that's a great idea. The review is eye-opening and might not make me feel good looking at what's lacking, but looks like we have the information we need to move Moncton Fire Department into a better place. Lots of notes on inspections and training. How far behind, Chief, are we or are we in inspections and training?
Thank you, Conseiller Richard. So that's part of the discussion and the recommendation. Now we have this information and the recommendations, and now we can make some recommendations moving forward on where to do this. Inspection, as you know, about a month ago, you folks approved the division chief. That's going to be huge, someone to manage the resources. Again, tonight, the training division, the recommendation of logistics, because if we'd have someone taking care of logistics, then the training officers that were hired to train could train and not take care of logistics. So those are the kind of recommendations that makes a difference. Admin support staff. So it's to be more efficient with the staff. So the fire prevention is definitely behind. We are dealing with the government also. It is a provincial mandate, so we're asking the government maybe to see if there's any partnership that we can go with them on that. And training, we can never train enough. That's what we do. We train for that rare call, but it's training. So yeah, we need the recommendations are there, and we support those.
And I truly appreciate that, Chief. It's just that reading through that on the weekend, I'm seeing an NFPA minimum inspection frequency and stuff like that. So I'm just checking on that. So, and if I heard correctly, there are other members of Moncton Fire Department in the room. I don't see you. Thank you for being there. I'm happy to see and how the collective bargaining agreement and the union representing the members was kept in touch in this review. And I'd be interested in knowing how the members feel about this review. I'm wondering if we'll see the members surveyed either through the union or through the city to understand how they feel, in what order these improvements should happen as well. I understand that I'm probably going to be, Chief, it's probably going to be your final decision, but I don't see why we wouldn't be able to, check the pulse on the members and see how they feel in all this.
Yeah, Councillor Richard, I think that's very important. We do consult. We do have some committees, subcommittees. We have a great relationship with the union, the executive. So now that this report is public, we're going to take time and digest it and talk to the members and see what their priorities are, what they think, because they're the ones dealing with this on a daily basis. So definitely going to be consulting them.
Okay, I really like that because I think it's really important. I've been working in the same spot for a while, and sometimes they don't always ask us our opinions. So I think it's very important to ask the people that are there. Separating training and the budget makes sense. I think this gives a better chance of fitting everything in. Happy to see the recommendation of a rapid response vehicle. That's huge. I'm going to ask a random question here, Chief. What is a dry hydrant?
So a dry hydrant is where
I
there's
don't
no,
like the sound of it.
sorry. It's an area where there's not a regular fire hydrant that's connected to system, so we would put a hydrant and connect it through either a lake or a stream or something like that. So a lot of the municipalities that don't have a fire hydrant system, you'll still see a few fire hydrants because they connect it underwater. So it's not positive pressure. We go and kind of suck the water out of that pond through a hydrant piped in. So that's why it's called dry. It's 99% of the time is dry until we use it.
Yeah, so for someone like me, a dry hydrant doesn't sound good. Yeah, so in a nutshell, I'd love to see some easier procedures, organizational changes that can be worked on immediately and implemented quickly once this is accepted. And let's add more firefighters and staff as soon as possible to help alleviate some physical and mental stresses they're living day in, day out. And so we can get the residents also to feel safer. Hoping, as we mentioned already, 2026 and future budgets will have a solid plan to follow up on these staffing, program, and equipment issues. I'm actually okay with less street repairs and get more safety for our firefighters and residents if needed. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Conseiller Richard. Conseiller Butler.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, I read this report, and thanks to Guy for the report. It was well done. Chief, I had a chance to read this over the weekend, and I got to tell you is that, you know, being on council for 9 years, I'm just amazed at how far back that we are on so many things. You know, with Brandon Street and St. George, and, you know, I always call it the new one on Botsford because it's new, you know, that these are pretty well obsolete as we speak. You know, and then when I read this and listening tonight, I take it that the membership hasn't seen this report yet.
No.
So has the union seen it?
No.
So, you know, I think one of the things that I would ask the CAO with the chief to maybe at our next committee of the whole, that we invite the union in who speak on behalf of the firefighters to sit down with us and, you know, have a plan going forward, because we have a lot of recommendations here, but which ones do the members on the street would like to see right away? These are very, very important matters. You know, these the men and women among the firefighters, they go out every day, and we're here asking us counselors what we recommend that we should be going forward with. I would really like to hear both sides. Yourself, you know, if you have a good working relationship, as you say, and I'm sure you do, with the union, then we all get together here, because this shouldn't be us and them. It should be we're working down to try to get something together to work. That's one of my points, and I'd really like that to happen. Number two is, when I read the report, he talked a lot, even Guy talked a lot tonight about your job description. Like, you're involved in this, you're involved in that, you're involved in this. And I think that, you know, I would like for the CAO, maybe to give council a job description of the fire chief and how many committees or organizations he's attached to that will take him away from being the fire chief. And that's no disrespect. I know the type of some people are, if you ask them to do it, they'll do it. Ask them something else, they'll do it. And after a while, you're spread so thin. So maybe we can get back to being, let's start off with fire chief, and then we need that, we will. The next one that I found in this was the fact that, especially in my area and also out the Salisbury Road and other areas of town, so in the northern part of the city, we have rural estates, we have Timberline Road, we have a number of areas where I think the last fire hydrant that's, I don't know if you'd call it dry, but it's not really wet, is at the corner of Ensley Boulevard and Mountain Road by McDonald's. From there up, there is none, so it gets really dry. And the last time that I drove up by Timberline Road, there ain't no lake where you can throw a pump in. So that would tell me that we need some tankers. And when is the last time that So so from what I understand is, from going over some files over my book here, is that we sometimes, for the big tankers, Riverview or Dieppe have bigger tankers than us.
That's correct.
As a fire chief, did you ever think, and this is no disrespect, but in our planning, did we ever think that we should have, with the amount of growth we have, we just took in Charles Lutz Road, whole area out there with not one fire hydrant. And I can't think of any lake out there or stream where you're going, sometimes in the spring, if there's a ditch, it's full, but water, but that's about it. When we go up, I know in Timberline, and certainly not putting anybody on the spot here, but we went up to Timberline, I think over the years that I've been on council, we've lost 2 houses up there. And we go up with a tanker, and how long does a tanker last if it's full?
Well, first of all, thank you, Councilor Bellard. We have 2 tankers, one at Station 1, Hildegard, and one at Caledonia. And then those are getting ready to be replaced. So we have 1 engine to replace, and after that, it's the tanker. So we will definitely increase those capacities as the time goes on. And just another comment is that a dry hydrant doesn't have to be a lake or stream. You can have a well, you can dig a well, or you can have underground tanks, so that you can kind of make an artificial thing. So tankers are amount of time. We dump it in a pool, and then once it could be 5, 6, 10 minutes before we drain that. So it could be very quick. So normally when we require those, we're going to need other municipalities, but everybody does that. Riverview and Dieppe calls us too, so we have that mutual aid agreement.
So I think that's why we have to speak to the people that are on them trucks every day, so we find out, like, what's their needs.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one that I think that will help with the financial part of it is that we help out a lot with the districts, the local districts. They're new municipalities, but we still go to them. And the last time that we checked there, Mr. CAO, the Southeast Regional Commission, they were getting financial help from the province. Regards to supplying services, we should be asking them to maybe shore up some cash here for, this is also going to affect them, especially new tankers, and if we need to put a 6th station in that, maybe they can help, because it's going to be covering areas as well. So and I think that at the very end, to make this all work, everybody has to work together. And I am so glad to see everybody here tonight, and to see that they're interested in what's going on. And I would hope that we can get a report to at least the executive union as soon as we can. Let them go over it and see. By the time we have another committee of the whole, they can come back and talk to us and give us what they think, what they would like to see first in their recommendations, along with yourself.
Yeah, and the report is now public, so it'll be distributed first thing tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Your Worship.
Merci, Conseiller Butler. There are no other questions. Oh, Conseiller Crossman, I almost forgot.
Councilor Crossman.
Members that are here this evening, thank you, because my 2 brothers were once firefighters for the Moncton Fire Department. And my dad goes back quite a ways to the older generation. I call it, of the firefighters. So, Chief, as you know, this is something that's close to my heart. As I went through the report, I think I sat down yesterday and thanked somebody for the rain, kept me in the house and allowed me to go through this report. I think the biggest thing that really stuck out was, and it was talked about this evening, so I won't talk about a lot of the previous councilors' comments, the social issues and how they're affecting this crew here that's sitting before council today. When I looked at the report, and there's section 2.6.4 in the report, the impact of the social issues on these folks here is massive, to the point where in the report, and I'm not going to quote the report, although I should probably, not willing to transfer to some station due to security concerns. Social issues, homeless, drug issues, shelters, impacted. And we expect these gentlemen and ladies that are here tonight as well as the ones that are sitting in stations right now that are on call, sitting at home, to put all this aside when a call comes in to get out to a resident as soon as they can. Now, you did talk about mental health issues, and you talked about the impact on the mental health. That has got to be straining alone on this group of individuals, would it not?
Absolutely, it is.
Yeah, and this is something that, so there was 4 things that came out, and more than 4. That was one, and I think we have to address that as a council, because the state of homelessness or street people that's going on within the city, it's having an effect not only on citizens, but now we're seeing through this report, which is something that we knew, the impact on our fire department and I'm not going to say response time, but I am going to say that because it probably is. Something else that came up was the new developments. You know, everything that's going up, it's been talked about, the high rises and things along that line. So hopefully that will get addressed here as we accept, if this report is accepted. I went to 4.3.7, talked about division structure and workload priorities. So that was very detailed, well detailed. It's good to know, it's good to see, but again, we're back to what council has said, some staffing. And you've talked about it, how quick it can be to train somebody. So that's a good thing. Throughout the report, I was wondering, what are the, if it takes, I think you said up to 6 months roughly to get somebody hired and trained and street ready, shall I say?
Correct.
What are our, how many people are applying on average to become a firefighter?
The last time, I think there was a little bit over around 60 that applied for 8 positions.
For 8 positions. And do we put that call out ourselves? The city of Moncton puts that call out?
Correct, yes.
Okay, perfect. Good, thank you. And on the fire station, I was really interested in the map on the 6th fire station, because as I looked at it, and unfortunately I can't pull it up right now in my report, I have to go back so many pages. Oh, right here, actually. Perfect. One was, I'm going to call it up off Shediac Road.
Right.
The other one is Caledonia, which I think would have been under George LeBlanc's leadership from 2012 to 16, because I remember that one. Then there's one possibly in the Vision Lands. My biggest concern was there seemed to be a gap below, I'm going to say St. George Street maybe on the map, coming down towards the waterfront. So I'm just curious, that is going to be a very heavily populated area with the Three Sisters and the Gateway project and hopefully more development. Is there a reason why that area, you think that area can get quicker service?
Guy, did you want to comment on that, on the process of determining the station locations?
So Guy, if you want a page number, it's page 206.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Pretty much I know all the pages by heart.
Sorry.
But yes, exactly. When it comes to the locations, yes, we use an algorithm to be able to identify the optimal location. And the issue of the a couple of elements with the downtown. So when it comes to the downtown area, like as you mentioned, if it's high density buildings, or generally speaking, it's a transient population. It's mostly a daytime population. So right there, the biggest issue is the nighttime population, making sure people have the warnings to be able to exit. So there's a little bit more of a warning elements to the daytime aspect. The second aspect is the structure. Building are very well engineers now. They have to be built to the building code of Canada, to the National Building Code. They need to also meet the National Fire Code. So when we look at the performance of buildings, again, there's a high performance for that. So when we did the optimizations, we looked at all the areas, mostly the residential areas after hours, area of high, we call medium hazard to high hazard. Yes, a large building are high hazard, but the optimization makes sure that, as you mentioned, or somewhat the councillor mentioned earlier, that you require for a high rise at least 38 personnel to attend. In all the area, when we look at the NFP 1710 that looks at response time, we optimize your locations where we know that a minimum, as per the protocol of the Moncton Fire Service, where how many engines can respond as a first responder, the first due, second due, and the initial full response. We know that we can meet the downtown within the 8 minutes with a minimum of 3 of the 5 right now stations, and will be 4 of the 6 stations. So for that reason, we don't see when we do the optimization that we need to make sure that we cover simultaneously performance of all the stations for the entire city of Moncton. When we do this, that's where you may not see a station that is located directly downtown. And I know that for us, it's a perspective that, well, we should have a station downtown. The optimization model and looking at the logarithm shows that you can have a full response, taking in consideration the transient population that is there, the daytime population that is there, the type of building, the building code, national building code, national fire code, putting all that in perspective and the ability of responding from the other stations within what we call the medium hazard response time of 8 minutes, we can absolutely accommodate your downtown. And that's why we look at the overall perspective of the entire city.
Great, and I thank you for that, Guy. That answers my question. So moving forward, I look forward to having more conversation on this. I really think that this is, because I've seen the post on social media by certain departments that, you know, more firefighters are needed, more locations are needed, and then the pressure's put back on council. But unfortunately, we didn't have this report ready till now. So now this gives us an avenue that we can actually sit down with staff, it seems to be the motion, and work through this for the benefit of our firefighters who are serving our citizens every day. So I really think that's important. I think Conrad, or Chief Landry, one part that I think was probably missed, we're talking firefighting, medical aid. We're also talking car accidents. We're also talking heart attacks. We're also talking that overdoses and things along that line that this group is responding to too, right?
Correct. And during, let's say that if there's a structure fire, they're going to respond also. So and then we do that today. If there's a structure fire, that's our priority. We won't respond to certain medical calls. Cardiac arrest is probably the exception, or we'll get another city Riverview DEP to cover for us. But whenever it's a structure fire, it's all hands on deck. So
good.
Yeah, everybody responds.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. That's all for now.
Merci, Conseiller Crossman. Conseiller Kingston.
Merci, Madame Adams.
Thank you, Councillor Crossman. Councillor Kingston, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Degagné.
Great councillor comments today regarding the 10 to 15-year plan. It's a big menu. What are the most urgent and pressing needs of MFD? The tax rate was brought up, the budget in the fall, the union, the membership. It's incredible. And I had a couple of quick questions. I think they were touched on by Councillor Crossman. The RRV vehicle, would you consider that a pressing need? And does that knock that 60% down of medical calls by regular MFD members down? Does that sort of immediate impact if you purchase an RRV, if we get along with one?
So it's kind of trifold. What it does, it reduces, so the number of calls are not going to be reduced.
Right.
But now it reduces the amount of calls that the big fire trucks go to. So it reduces the wear and tear on the big fire truck, reduces the wear and tear, or sorry, not wear and tear, but the mental health of the firefighters, because we're going to rotate. We would rotate if this is approved, right? So that's number, but also it increases the amount of staff that when we do have a large vehicle collision or we have a large structure fire, that we can complement the staff with that. So it kind of does a bunch of stuff at the same time. So so that would probably one of the first recommendations we would bring up.
Do they exist in St. John and Fredericton, Chief? Do you know?
Not really. Fredericton a little bit, but we kind of looked at the Calgary model. Calgary has it. Dieppe and Riverview have it. It's a different model. They didn't increase their staff. They split their crew, and we don't support that. But Calgary has a really, in Montreal, I think, has something similar.
Right. And just a final clarification on the moving the three, Brandon, St. George, and Botsford. So not tear down the building and build new. Physically leave those locations for other locations in the city. They're no longer deemed appropriate locations, correct? Is that what I'm reading here?
That's what the report says.
Thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Merci. Thank you, Chief Landry. Merci, Madame Adams. Thank you.
Merci, Conseiller Kingston. We have a motion. Could we see the motion, please? Could we read it?
Could we project it so that Councillor Richard can see it online?
So everyone has had an opportunity to read the motion.
Cossier
Can we,
Cossier Richard, did you see the motion?
No, not yet.
How can we project it so that Councillor Richard, there you go, it should be coming up shortly. There you go.
Well, I see part of it. Both sides are trimmed off. I mentioned this to Kyle already, so could you read it, please?
Yes. The Moncton City Council received the fire service report presented at the July 21st, 2025 regular public meeting, council meeting, and direct staff to provide their feedback by end of September 2025, as well as a 15-year implementation plan with cost, advantages, and disadvantages of each recommendation by end of year. Moved by Councillor Bourgeois and seconded by Councillor Legier.
Merci beaucoup.
so can,
Thank you very much. Councillor Leger? Thank you. I have a question.
So the 15-year plan will come at the end of the year, but there are pressing items that we need to consider this year. For example, so in other words, will you come to us with a list of the priorities? So maybe if it is the rapid response vehicle, for example, like something that we need to look at so that we begin this process this year and we discuss it. And so that's my expectation. Jacques, can we have that happen? Mr. CFO?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we do on a daily basis. We take the recommendations and we bring what we could fund and what administration's recommendation that we can't fund this year. But again, that will also have to do with the budget update that we do in September as well, because I mean,
so this will be incorporated.
Absolutely, and it was also in the initial one. This is one of the major pressures, as long as with all the other things we want to do, right? So
Yes.
that will be part of the normal budget process. Yes.
No, and that's understood, but I think there's a different a priority when it comes to protective services and in particular fire at this point. So thank you, though. Appreciate it.
merci. Can we go to the vote? Is it electronic? Oui. Motion carried. Merci. Merci, Monsieur Landry. Merci à votre équipe aussi. Merci d'avoir.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Thank you thank you to your team, and thank you for being patient with us.
To committees et les nominations à des comités.
C'est beau, Madame la greffière. Merci. Donc,
Thank you, Madam City Clerk.
Accessibility Committee, Sébastien Leblanc, reappointment for 1 year. Connie Melançon Savoy, reappointment 3 years. Julie Moreau, reappointment 3 years. Kodiak Regional Policing Authority, Erwin Lampert, reappointment 3 years. Moncton Public Library, Jacqueline Stephen, Corinne Revoluson, Carmen Leblanc. Youth Advisory Committee, Prospero Matou, Moncton Christian Academy. Donc, est-ce qu'on va au vote? Non? Oui. Okay, I need a mover and a seconder. Conseiller Crossman, Conseiller Leblanc. Merci. And Conseiller Richard?
No, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we will go to the vote. Electronic, merci.
Councillor Steves, Councillor Butler, can you vote for the nominations? Councillor Steves. Thank you.
Motion carried. Merci à tous. Conseiller Richard.
Thank you to everyone. Councillor Richard, are you there?
Merci beaucoup. Bonne soirée.
That's all right.
Thank you very much. Have a great evening.